the fact that we now have a, not to get derailed by Trump, but we have a president who will call the best news we have fake news, and we'll sit down with Alex Jones for an hour and tell him he's doing amazing work. Right?
I have a hypothesis about Breitbart, by the way. So Bloomberg has always been viewed as generally respectable by me and many people I know. And I think that, but nobody ever watches it, pays attention, so they just knew it was the one with the B. And then when Breitbart came out, they just assumed they were the same thing, and that's where it got its credibility from.
Yes. Somehow I don't think that explains it.
I'm not completely convinced, but
it is the fact that confirmation bias and the fact that our epistemology, just the totality of our fact-checking and reality testing and truth claim forming is now hostage to politics in this way. Left and right. I mean, some of the most egregious violations now are on the left, and that's why so many of us who are liberal spend a lot of time. I mean, I certainly spend too much time criticizing the right and criticizing Trump in particular. I think I've exhausted the patience of everyone, even the people who agree with me, in terms of how often I touch the topic of Trump. But I do spend as much time worrying about the excesses on the left, because the left is where we have to get this right? The place where the primacy of free speech is never lost sight of, and tolerance of diversity is a norm we never want to lose touch with. That is just being nullified by this kind of moral panic on the left. If you told me that tomorrow at a university someone would be deplatformed and anyone who showed up to hear that talk would be spat upon by an angry mob, I could predict with probably 99% confidence that was a leftist phenomenon, or that the people in that crowd were as far to the left politically as we find, and that is a cancer that we have to find some way of combating at this point.
It's a bizarre twist, I think, from what my original perceptions were. As an outspoken atheist, skeptic, humanist, I have traveled around to universities. I've debated in churches, and I've engaged with people who are awful, like genuinely awful people in debates. And I don't normally sum up the whole of somebody's character and say they're awful. Even when Billy Graham died the other day, I wasn't glad that he was dead because he was an enemy. I was happy that he was no longer alive to poison minds because what he believes is the enemy.
Right.
But I don't even, perhaps with regard to a level of influence, I might put Billy Graham up there in that awful category. But there are people who are genuinely just, I can't stand to be, Cy Ten Bruggencate is a piece of crap, okay?
I don't even know who that is.
Thank you. Applaud if you saw the debate with me and Cy. Yeah. Cy is an annoying presuppositionalist who doesn't even know what he's talking about and genuinely has a problem with women and respect and all sorts of stuff. Not worth your time, ever.
Okay, well, you
welcome.
Just saved me some time that I don't have.
But so recently we announced, actually both of us are doing events with Jordan Peterson.
Right.
Mine's in April in Toronto. And the first thing somebody was like, oh, why are you giving that Jordan Peterson guy a platform? And I'm like, okay, well, if you'd have said that 3 years ago when nobody knew who the hell he was, it would be, okay, now I'm basically debating some YouTuber. But he already has a platform. I'm not giving him anything. What I'm doing is going up and having a conversation where I challenge the things that we disagree on. And that, to me, is exactly what should happen. And so when I hear about, oh, we don't want that at our campus, there are subjects and individuals where I can completely understand why campuses wouldn't want that person there. And in my view is that the students of the campuses are the customers, and the university has to make a decision. And if that's what is decided as this is not acceptable at our university, fine. And you'll reap the repercussions of that. I don't necessarily think that a university or a church or any place that's not just like a public venue owes someone a podium. On the other hand, I am also an advocate that the solution to bad speech and bad ideas is better speech and better ideas, and challenging them and not punching them or spitting on them or doing whatever you can, breaking microphones or whatever. It's just, I could never do that. And it frustrates me that people don't understand that the protections of free speech to come and say things that are unpopular are the very things that they depend on when they want me to come speak at their university, when they want you to come speak. And it becomes this cliquish, how are we going to decide who gets to speak? Well, let them all speak.
Yeah.
Sometimes the audience isn't going to show up.
Also, well, there are different occasions too, because a speech at a university is different from inviting someone onto your podcast to have a conversation. And there's kind of an uncanny valley here, which I haven't sorted out what I think about it. But if a person is sufficiently bad, you can talk to, it's fine to talk to them, and you're just kind of going to the mode of being an anthropologist. You're just interested in this evil person.
You're just giving him enough rope.
But no one in your audience would say you've given a platform to Charles Manson or Ted Bundy or like if you can get an interview with a serial killer, well, why not do it? It's an interesting conversation to have, right?
You just won my wife's heart.
Yeah.
She's fascinated with serial killers and interviews with them. And
right. So I mean, I've often thought like it would be interesting to sit down with the Unabomber and have a conversation, right? Because he's probably nuts, but he also is smart and nuts, and he has all of these weird ideas, which I mean, perhaps you recall his manifesto. Many people have put sections of that in blog posts or in books, leaving off the author or putting the author. You don't find out the author's name until you've turned the page. And there are stretches that it can seem quite reasonable, especially given how it anticipates some of the problems we've had with technology. So, in any case, if I sat down with Ted Kaczynski, I would not have to spend any time signaling to my audience that I disapprove of what he's done. Right? We're going to spend the first half hour here talking about just how bad it is to send bombs in the mail trying to kill innocent strangers. But if the person isn't nearly that bad, if they're just somebody who has shady views, then the onus is on you, the interviewer, to spend a lot of time describing just how repugnant you consider their views to be, and it's a real challenge because we all know people who get the balance wrong and get penalized for just who they were willing to talk to. And I've made some, I've been public about this. There's some people who have said, I see no reason to have on my podcast, but even though many people online say they want me to talk to them, because I don't actually consider them kind of morally serious interlocutors, but it's
Is that why you haven't had me on yet?
It's a hard balance to find. What was that?
I said, is that why you haven't had me on yet?
No, you've been on. You perhaps weren't aware of it, but
it is frustrating.
I've used your audio on my podcast.
Wow.
You've been on there.
It is frustrating, though, because one of the things I despise is the very idea that I need to use a disclaimer all the time. So I think people get frustrated, but I know I do. The following views expressed do not represent blah, 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 blah. That shouldn't be required. And the mere fact that I'm having a conversation with someone who I would suspect most people would realize I disagree with, I may ask questions in order to elicit responses so that I can actually do a better job of pointing out where there are problems there. But merely asking the questions and allowing them to answer is on occasion being viewed as me giving them, you let that theist talk way too much.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but if he's saying dumb things, I trust that the audience is smart enough to get that, and we've exposed a problem with his epistemology, a problem with how he's going to go about making decisions.
Right.
I don't want to do disclaimers. This is a disclaimer for the future.